Hello everyone. Today I have delivered lecture on weathering and Aeolian process landform. Aeolian process. What is meant by Aeolian process landform? Aeolian process landform means those landforms are produced due to the erosion and weathering and deposition of the wind action. Wind action means wind velocity. Due to the wind velocity, the rock get erosion, weathered, and form different landforms in the form of erosional landforms. And this erosional material has been deposited due to the wind velocity, and that type of landform is called as depositional landform. Means those landforms are produced or resulting from the wind geological action of wind called as Aeolian process landform. In landform, any geological action, there are two types of landforms developed, that is the erosional landform and depositional landform. Erosional landform means the rock has been broken into pieces and then form structures called as erosional landforms, and after erosion and weathering, this material has been transported from one place to another place and deposited in particular places. Then those landforms are formed called as depositional landform. Okay, what is meant by weathering? Weathering means break rock fragment due to the different geological actions such as wind, glacial, river, or marine environment. These are the main geological factors play an important role to weathering and erosion of the rocks, that is the wind, glaciers, river, and marine environment. The geology recognize two categories of weathering process, that is the physical weathering and chemical weathering. What is meant by physical weathering? Physical weathering is also called as mechanical weathering, means disintegration of rock and minerals by the very geological action called as physical weathering. And another is chemical weathering. Chemical weathering means the alteration and decomposition of the rock and minerals, maybe the changing the composition of the mineral or changing the composition of rock called as chemical weathering. These are the two main types of weathering: physical weathering and chemical weathering. In details, physical weathering, the mechanical breakup. Mechanical breakup means the physical breakup or disintegration of rock does not change mineral makeup. In physical weathering, there is no change in the chemistry of the mineral or chemistry of the any type of material after the erosion or after the weathering, only changing the physical structures. It creates broken fragments, smaller pieces called as detritus, which are classified by based on size: coarse grain, medium grain, and fine grain. Coarse grain means those are coarser size, greater than 4 mm size of the sediment, that is the pebble, then cobble, then boulder. The size of boulder is 256 mm. These sediments belongs to the coarse grain: boulder, cobble, and pebble. Another is medium grain. Medium grain means all sand particles belongs to the medium grain size of the sediment. And another one is fine grain. The silt and clay is belongs to the fine grain material of the sediment. It is also called as mud. It is a very thin particle of the sediments, less than 0.5 mm size of this sediment called as silt, and finer than the silt called as clay. These are the categorization of the sediments based on the size of the particular grain size or particular sediment size: coarse grain, medium grain, and fine grain. Okay, what is meant by chemical weathering? I already told, chemical weathering means only changing the chemistry of the earlier material, maybe the rock, maybe the mineral, maybe any type of material, even also soil. The main agent responsible for chemical weathering, that is the water and weak acids, forms in water. Weak acids are forms in water. In an acid is solution that has abundant free of hydrogen ions. Okay, the most common weak acid that occurs in surface water, that is the carbonic acid. Carbonic acid means H2CO3. H2CO3, it is called as carbonic acid. This carbonic acid is produced in rainwater. Where produce the carbonic acid? Carbonic acid is produced in rainwater by reaction of the water with the carbon dioxide. When water react with the carbon dioxide, which is present in the atmosphere, gas in the atmosphere, you see below reaction, H2O means water plus CO2, then form carbonic acid with hydrogen ion and bicarbonate ion. Means carbonic acid are formed with the help of water plus carbon dioxide and then form three separate molecules: carbonic acid, hydrogen ion, and bicarbonate ion. This is the one of the best example of chemical weathering. Okay, types of chemical weathering. There are different types of chemical weathering: hydrolysis, leaching, oxidation, dehydration, and complete dissolution. These are the 5 different reactions in the happen in the chemical weathering of the any type of rock or mineral. First one, hydrolysis. Hydrolysis means hydrogen or OH, hydrogen, replaces an ion in the mineral. The example, best example of these, orthoclase. Orthoclase, what is the chemical composition of orthoclase? Orthoclase is 4KAlSi3O8 react with hydrogen ion, 4 hydrogen ion plus water 2H2O, then form potassium ion plus kaolinite, that is the clay mineral. One of the example are clay mineral is a product of orthoclase. When orthoclase weathering with the water and hydrogen ion, then form kaolinite mineral called as clay mineral. The chemical composition of kaolinite is Al4Si4O10OH8 plus quartz. The quartz and kaolinite is separate out from the orthoclase. This is the example of chemical weathering, that is the hydrolysis. Hydrolysis means pure mineral, that is the orthoclase. Orthoclase is a source mineral that react with the hydrogen ion and waters, that is the hydrolysis, then form potassium ion, and two separate minerals are formed, that is the kaolinite and quartz. This is the example of hydrolysis example. Okay, second type is leaching. Leaching means removed, ions are removed by dissolution into the water. In the example above we say that is the potassium ion was leached out. Potassium ion was leached out from the orthoclase, and then two minerals are separate form, that is the kaolinite and quartz. But the first original mineral is orthoclase. When weathering taken place, when orthoclase are get weathered with the hydrolysis process, then form kaolinite and quartz mineral with potassium ion is leached out. This is the example of leaching. Another is oxidation. Oxidation means since free oxygen is more common near the earth's surface, since free oxygens are more common in the near the earth's surface, it may react with the mineral to change the oxidation state of an ion. Okay, this is the most common in iron bearing minerals. Since iron can have several oxidation states, maybe Fe, Ap plus 2 cations, Fe plus 3 cations. Deep in earth, most common oxidation state, that is the Fe, is Fe2 plus ion. For example, pyroxene get oxidized, pyroxene plus oxygen, then form magnetite and quartz. Magnetite is iron bearing mineral, means the source mineral is pyroxene. When pyroxene get oxidized, then form magnetite and quartz. These are the two separate mineral. This process is called as oxidation. Means pyroxene is a source mineral. When pyroxene get oxidized, when oxidation of pyroxene, that converted into the two separate minerals, that is magnetite and quartz. Okay, third is dehydration. Dehydration means elimination of water, removal of water or hydrogen ions from minerals. The example is goethite. Goethite is iron bearing mineral. The chemical composition of goethite is 2FeOH, then form hematite plus water. Water is removal of water from original mineral. Goethite is the original mineral that form that removal of water, then form hematite. This is the example of dehydration. And another example is complete dissolutions. Complete dissolution of the reaction. This is another reaction. Okay, all the minerals is completely dissolved by the water. All the minerals, all the natural minerals are completely dissolved by the water. For example, calcite react with carbonic acid. Calcite, chemical composition of calcite is CaCO3 with dissolve with the carbonic acid H2CO3, then form calcium ion and bicarbonate ion. Means the mineral is totally dissolved, only form the different ions, calcium ion and bicarbonate ion. In first three cases, the minerals are separate out to form different two minerals or combination of minerals. But in this case, complete dissolution means all the minerals are completely dissolved by the water, by the action of water. When example is calcite react with carbonic acid and completely dissolve in water, then form only the ions, calcium ion and bicarbonate ion. These are the processes of complete dissolution of weathering, chemical weathering. These are the different 5 types of weathering: hydrolysis, leaching, oxidation, dehydration and complete dissolution. These are the types of chemical weatherings. Okay, now we are going towards landform produced from the geological action of wind, means the Aeolian landforms. Aeolian landform means Aeolian is Greek word. Aeolian means those landforms are produced due to the weathering and erosion and deposition by the geological action of wind. You know wind? Wind means vara, pavan. Wind means vara or pavans in Hindi. It is also called as pavan. These winds are responsible for producing different landforms like erosional landform and depositional landforms. It will be happen only in mostly in the desertic area. This is the desert. What is meant by desert? What is the definition of desert? Desert means any region with heavy scanty rainfall, heavy low rainfall. In India, in some part of the some part of the western India belongs to the Rajasthan belongs to the desert. Okay. This is the distribution of desert. The location of the most desert is related to the descending year. The equator receives the sun's heat more directly than the rest of the earth. Therefore, air warms and rises the move both northward and southward to sink near 30° north and 30° south. Okay. Distribution of desert. Rain shadow. Rain shadow means the barrier of the rainfall. Desert resulting from mountainous ranges. Most moist air is forced up to pass over mountain ranges. It expands and cools, losing moisture at ridges. Dry air coming down on the other side of mountain comprises warms, bringing high evaporation with little or no rainfall to the downwind side of the range. You see in this figure, this is the heavy rainfall region and this is the low rainfall regions. The all rainfall receives here means leeward side, and in downward side the rainfall will be reduced. This is the example of rain shadow. Rain shadow in Marathi, rain shadow called as Prajanya Chayacha Pradesh. Most of the Sahyadri ranges, one of the example of rain shadow zone in our Maharashtra state. After crossing Sahyadri ranges, some of the area parallel to the Sahyadri belongs to the rain shadow zone. It is the very scanty rainfall zone called as rain shadow zone. Okay, great distance from the ocean. The desert is very great distance from the ocean. Since most of the rainfall comes from the water evaporated from the sea, a great distance from the ocean is another factor that can create deserts. Area, the distance of the desert is very away from the ocean, because of in ocean just from the cloud and nearer to the coastal line it is heavy rainfall. For example, in Konkan area it receives heavy rainfall. On Sahyadri leeward side, before leeward side means near to the seaside, heavy to heavily rainfall, and after downward side when goes front of the mountain, then receives very scanty rainfall or low rainfall. This is the one of the example of created deserts. Lack through flowing streams. In desertic area the number of streams is very less. Internal drainage pattern, the streams drain towards the landlocked basin instead of towards the sea. And flash flood, because of the lack of the vegetation in the desertic area, also a very less number of vegetation, and heavy rainfall runs rapidly over the surface and creates sudden local floods with high discharge. This is the characteristics of the deserts. Then dry washes, channels created by the rapid down-cutting by sediments, laden flood waters, which tends to produce narrow canon and with vertical walls and flat gravel strewn floors. These are the characteristics of the deserts. You see, these are the landform produced in the desertic area. You see this figure: plateau, mesa, and butte. Plateau means flat land, flat topped area elevated above the surrounding land and bounded at least in part of cliff. Cliff means both the side of the both side lands are plateau, and only wall-like structures are bounded, called as plateau. Plateau means in Marathi plateau is also called as pathar. Deccan Tripe is one of the example of flat-topped area elevated above the surrounding land, called as plateau. Then mesa and butte. Now you see this figure. Mesa means a broad flat-topped hill bounded by the cliffs and capped with the resistant rock layers. Upper portion of the this hill covered with the resistance rock layer means it is not vulnerable to the weathering and erosion. And then from flat-topped hill bounded by cliffs, called as mesa. The area of mesa is larger than the butte. Butte means small hills, narrow hills of resistant rock with flat top and very steep sides, very steep slopes, called as butte. Suppose you are going to geological fieldwork in the Nashik area, Ankai Tankai hills near to the Manmad railway stations. When traveling within the train from Manmad to Aurangabad, from Manmad towards Aurangabad, from the right side, so many mesa and buttes you should thumb-like structures, very small hills and very flat-topped hills in the form of mesa and in the form of butte will be seen in the right side of the railway track from Manwad towards the Aurangabad, in as a part of I think Sahyadri, Ajanta mountain ranges. Okay. Then monocline, hogback, and cuesta. These are the another examples of the landforms produced in the desertic area. Monocline means bend in rock layers. You should see this diagram. Monoclines. This is the monoclines. Monoclines means bends in rock layers like waterfall, called as monocline. And hogback means sharp ridges that steep slope. Here hogback, very sharp ridges and steep slopes. Cuesta means gentle slope, gently tilted resistance layers with the one steep side and one gently sloping slopes. This is the cuesta. One is gentle slope and one is steep slope, called as cuesta. Monocline, hogback, cuesta is a product of desertic landform. Okay. Then another is playa lake. Playa, Bajara and pediment zone is an example of desertic landform. Playa lakes means shallow temporary lakes. Very shallow depth layers are formed on a flat valley floor in dry regions, called as playa lake. Playa means a very flat surface underlain by hard and mud cracked clay, called as playa. Bajara zone means broad, gently sloping depositional surface formed by the coalescing of individual alluvial fans. Alluvial fan means fan-like structures are developed near the foothill of the mountain. Foothill means nearer to the foothills of the mountain, called as Bajara zone. Then pediment zone. When formed, gentle slope is very gentle, commonly covered with the veneer of gravels connected to the solid rock of the mountain. Gravel beds. Gravel means more than 4 mm size of the sediments are deposited foothill of the mountain. These types of zones or these types of structures are formed, called as pediment zone. And gentle slope with depositional surface formed by the coalescing of individual alluvial fans, called as Bajara zone. Then we see about the wind action. What is meant by wind? Wind means wind is a atmospheric agent, can be important agent of erosion and deposition in any climate as long as sediment particles are loose and dry. Wind differs from running water into the way because air is less dense than the water, because water density is very high. Wind can erode only fine sediments. Wind are only eroded fine sediment like sand, silt and clay. Wind cannot erode boulder, cobble and gravel and pebble because the density of air is very less than the water. Wind is not confined to channel as raining water is, so water can have widespread effect over the vast area. In wind is very less responsible of the weathering and erosion. Wind erosion and transportation. Wind erosion means due to the geological action of wind, some of the erosions has been taken place, called as wind erosion. That is the dust storm. You know dust storm. Dust storm means आपण मराठीमध्ये त्याला धुळीचे वादळ म्हणतो, डस्ट स्टॉर्म्स. When loose silts and clay are easily picked up from barren and dry soils, such as in a cultivated field, silt and clay can remain suspended in turbulent air. The silt and clay are floating in the atmosphere a long time, so strong wind may be carried a dust cloud hundreds of meters upward and hundreds of kilometers horizontal direction, horizontal as well as upward direction. These silt and clay particles floating on the atmosphere or in the air and due to the strong wind may be carried dust cloud hundreds of meters upward and hundreds of kilometers horizontally. Okay. Volcanic ash is a product from volcanic eruption. When volcano eruption that can be carried by wind of very great distance, the ash can be caught in high altitude jet streams which have been known to carry ash as far as 300 miles, means near about 4,800 km. Then jet stream, a narrow belt of strong wind with velocities sometimes greater than 200 meter per hour. Saltation means a mode of transportation that carries sediments down current in a series of sharp leaps or bounces. Okay. Then sand storms, cloud of sand moving rapidly near the land surface. Cloud of sand moving rapidly near the surface and then form ventifex like structures. You should see these types of structure. This is the example of ventifecates are formed because of soft rock eroded and hard rock remains, and then form structure is called as ventifex, wind abraded surfaces. Okay. Deflation means the removal of clay, silt and sand particle from the land surfaces by the wind. The removal of clay, silt and sand particles from the land surfaces. Suppose in the desert area, lot of land, sand, silt and clay presence. Due to the wind action, the removal of this clay, silt and sand from move towards the leeward side, means one place to another place in the form of transportation. Then blowout means depression on the land surface caused by the wind erosion. Then pillar like structures are formed, erosional remnant of the former land that may be left at the center of blowout. This is the picture. This picture showing the pillar means remnant of erosional of the former land. Only some of the structures are still there, called as pillar. May be left at the center of the blowout. Wind depositional landform, that is the loess. Loess is deposit of wind-blown silt and clay composed of unweathered angular grain of quartz, feldspar and other mineral weakly cemented by the calcite. Have high porosity, typically near the 60%. You should see in this diagram, this brown and this lemon color shows presence of major loess cover areas in the world. In our India, also some of the Rajasthan area and some of the southern like Tamil Nadu and some part of the Tamil Nadu and some part of the Andhra have some loess structures. Loess deposition are found because of loess means very fine particle of the sediments are blown silt and clay composed of unweathered angular fragments of quartz, feldspar and other mineral. Those are weakly cemented, means they cannot cemented very well, therefore it is very loose, such as calcite with high porosity. Those minerals have highly porous, greater than 60% and very weakly cemented, and then these sediments are blown in the atmosphere through the wind velocity, a high wind velocity, and deposited from one place to another place in the form of loess. Loess is one of the depositional landforms of the silt and clay through the wind blown through the particles coming from the leeward side to the downward side and then form deposit called as loess. Then sand dunes means in the desertic area, mounds of the loose sand grains heaped up by the wind, most likely to develop in areas with the strong winds that generally blow in the same direction. Suppose winds are flowing from west to east, then form these dunes west to east direction. Suppose north to south, then form north-south dunes called as sand dunes. Sand grains found in dunes are commonly well sorted and well rounded because wind is very selective as it moves sediments. In river channel, it is not happening this is not poorly sorted. In the river channel, the sediments are seen in different size, maybe presence of cobble, pebble, gravel, sand, silt and clay. But in desertic area, in the sand dunes is basically well sorted sediment and well rounded because wind is very selective as it moves sediments. Suppose one of the desert only presence of sand, then only presence of sand in that dune. But in river channel case, there are different type of sediments are found. This is the one of the example of well sorted and well rounded sediments are present in the desertic area because of wind is very selective as it moves sediments. This is the one of the example of sand dunes. You will see this diagram. This one. This is the sand dunes, parallel dunes, slip faces, the steep downward slope of the dunes, wind ripples, ripple marks, ripple marks, small and low ridges of sand produced by saltation of the grains. This is the picture showing, this is the hill, this is the wind direction, and this is the lever direction. This is the down lever direction. Okay, this is the lever direction, downward and lever direction. From this all sediments coming from this and deposited here, foothill of the mountains, that is the dunes. Types of dunes. Barkhans is one of the example of types of dunes. The crescent shape curve dunes with steep slope face on the inward or concave side, which is formed where the sand supply is limited. Where the sand supply is limited, then form crescent shaped structures called as barkhans. You see this diagram, barkhans. It is very important geological landform, depositional landform of desertic area, that is the barkhan. Okay, types of dune. There are different types of dune. Transverse dune, parabolic dune, longitudinal dune. Okay, this is the transverse dunes. It is relatively straight, elongated dune oriented perpendicular to the wind direction. Suppose wind direction is north south, then dunes are formed west to east. You should see in this figure. These types of dunes are formed west to east wind direction. Suppose wind direction is here and the dunes are formed here perpendicular to the wind direction, called as transverse dunes. Another is parabolic dune, somewhat similar in the shape to Barkhan dunes, except it is deeply curved and convex in the downward direction. Like this is the crescent shape curve, concave towards upward wind direction in Barkhan, but in parabolic dune it is extremely somewhat similar in the shape. Same shape is same, crescent shape, but except that is deeply curved, concave in the downward direction. That is the parabolic dune. Then longitudinal dune, one of the largest types of dunes, which is symmetrical ridges of sand that forms parallel to the prevailing wind direction. Suppose wind direction is north south, and then dunes also form north south. That is the longitudinal dunes. This is another sketches of the dune types. This is the parabolic dune or blowout. This is the barkhans. Barkhans is crescent shape and form downward side, and in parabolic dune leeward side. This is the transverse dunes. Transverse dunes is parallel to the wind direction. Then barkhonides means the bunch of or number of barkhans called as barkhonides, stars like structures. These are the different types of dunes. This is the depositional and erosional landforms of resulting from geological action of wind. It is also called as Aeolian process landforms. That is the product of wind action, erosional landform and depositional landform. Okay, in erosional landform, mesa, butte, plateau, playa, pinnacle, ventifacets, mushroom shaped rock. This is the example of erosional landform. And longitudinal dune, transverse dunes, parabolic dune, loess and barkhans and barkhonides and bunches of barkhans. It is a product of depositional types of landform of the Aeolian process, means geological action of wind. Okay, if any doubt on this topic, you will reply on WhatsApp also. Okay, I will send you this PPT along with the recorded lecture on your WhatsApp. Okay, you will see. Thank you.